I froze at my bedroom window. Two men in uniforms grabbed my mother's arm in our front yard. "You need to leave this property immediately," the taller one shouted, flashing a fake badge. Mom struggled, dropping her gardening tools as they tried dragging her toward their unmarked car. "I live here. This is my home." Mom screamed, fighting back as they pulled harder. I grabbed my phone, hit record, and captured everything. My police chief badge sat on my nightstand. These fake HOA goons had no idea who they were messing with. No idea whose mother they were assaulting. My blood boiled watching them manhandle her. "That's my mother." I called dispatch while racing down the stairs. They picked the absolute worst house on the block to try their scam. "Hey everyone. I'm Michael. What you just saw happen last week right outside my house. Hit subscribe and turn on notifications if you're new here. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments." I moved to Riverside just 3 months ago, never expecting this quiet neighborhood would turn into a crime scene. Has anything like this happened where you live? Let me know below. Trust me, you'll want to see how these guys got what was coming to them. We moved here in January, just me and Mom. Peaceful streets lined with maple trees. Neighbors who wave from their porches. The kind of place where kids still ride bikes until sunset. "This is perfect, Michael," Mom said our first night here. She'd been through so much after Dad passed. The city apartment felt too cramped, too full of memories. "Our new house isn't fancy, simple brick front, small yard, blue shutters." Mom insisted on painting herself. "Makes it ours," she said. Everyone welcomed us. Mrs. Patel brought homemade samosas. The Johnsons helped unload boxes. Even the teenagers next door offered to mow our lawn. No homeowners association here. That's partly why we chose it. Mom loves gardening without strict rules. She planted roses along the fence, tomatoes in the back. Her garden therapy, she calls it. We felt safe. I drive to the station each morning, confident Mom was okay. Never imagined someone would target our little corner of paradise. My mother found peace in soil and seeds. Her favorite spot was the corner near the maple tree where she'd hung a small wind chime. "Your father always loved the sound," she explained. The garden wasn't just plants to her. It was reclaiming power over life and death, creating beauty where there had been emptiness. That's why watching those men approach her there, in her sacred space, felt like witnessing a desecration. They didn't just threaten my mother. They threatened everything she had rebuilt after shattering loss. It was a crisp Tuesday morning in April, sunshine filtering through spring clouds. A black SUV with tinted windows rolled into our driveway at exactly 10:42 a.m. No markings, no logo, just a vehicle that screamed, trying too hard to look official. I noticed it from my home office window while on a video call with my precinct team. Two men stepped out, both wearing pressed khaki pants and navy blue polo shirts with some kind of embroidered patch. The taller one carried a clipboard, sunglasses hiding his eyes despite the cloudy day. The shorter one kept looking around nervously, hand repeatedly touching something inside his jacket. Mom was kneeling by her rose bushes, completely unaware. She'd been out there since breakfast, humming to herself while pruning the spring growth. The peaceful scene was about to shatter. The taller man approached first, his posture stiff and rehearsed. He said something I couldn't hear, but Mom immediately stood up, brushing dirt from her knees. I ended my call abruptly. "Something's not right," I told my deputy before disconnecting. 20 years on the force teaches you to recognize trouble before it announces itself. These men weren't from any city department I recognized. And we didn't have an HOA. I'd specifically chosen this neighborhood for that reason. Through the cracked window, I heard the taller man's voice rise. "Ma'am, according to our records, you're in violation of Code 5.7 regarding unauthorized landscape modifications." Mom shook her head. "There must be some mistake. We don't have any codes or HOA here." The shorter man stepped closer. "We need you to come with us to the HOA office to discuss the violations and potential fines." When Mom hesitated, the taller one produced a document. "This is a removal notice. Either you come discuss this civilly, or we'll be forced to take further action." I grabbed my phone and started recording, my other hand reaching for my service weapon and badge. Something was very wrong and it was about to get worse. "I need to see identification," Mom demanded, crossing her arms. Smart woman, first thing I taught her after Dad died. The taller man flashed something that looked like a badge. Too quick to read, too shiny to be genuine. "I'm Officer Reynolds with HOA Enforcement. This is Officer Daniels. We've received complaints about unauthorized modifications to your property." "What modifications?" Mom's voice remained steady, but I could hear the edge in it. She'd worked too hard on that garden to have strangers question it. The rose bushes violate height restrictions. The decorative pond requires prior approval. The vegetable garden in the backyard exceeds allowable dimensions. Reynolds read from his clipboard, pointing toward different areas of our yard. Mom shook her head. This neighborhood doesn't have an HOA. I checked before we bought this house. Ma'am, your property was annexed into the Oak Ridge Community Association 3 months ago. All residents received notification. Daniel stepped closer, invading Mom's personal space. The previous owners signed the agreement. That's impossible. I have all the closing documents. Reynolds sighed dramatically. Unfortunately, your noncompliance leaves us no choice but to issue fines. Initial violation, $750. Continued noncompliance, $250 daily. Mom's face paled. She lives on a fixed income since Dad died. This is ridiculous. I need to call my son. She reached for her pocket. Phone calls won't change the violations, ma'am. Daniels grabbed her wrist, preventing her from reaching her phone. We need you to come to the office to process the paperwork. Otherwise, we'll place a lien on your property. I'd seen enough. This was the same scam hitting 3 counties in our jurisdiction. Fake HOA representatives targeting older homeowners, especially new residents. They'd intimidate, extract fine payments, sometimes even get access to homes where they'd steal valuables. But they'd never targeted a police chief's mother before. I moved toward the stairs, keeping my phone recording everything. The situation shifted when Mom stood her ground. I'm not going anywhere with you until I speak with my son. Reynolds' friendly facade cracked. His smile disappeared, replaced by a cold stare. Listen, lady. We can do this the easy way or the hard way. He stepped closer, towering over her 5'4" frame. The HOA board doesn't appreciate troublemakers. What HOA board? Mom's voice rose. There is no HOA here. Show me actual documentation with my signature on it. Daniels pulled out more papers. Your signature isn't required. The neighborhood voted. Majority rules. Mom reached again for her phone. That's not how property law works. I'm calling my son right now. Reynolds knocked her hand away. No calls. You're coming with us to resolve this immediately. His voice dropped to a threatening whisper. We know you live alone. Nobody wants an elderly woman dealing with legal troubles. Mom's eyes flashed with anger. I'm not elderly and I'm certainly not alone. Look around, Daniel sneered. I don't see anyone here to help you. They didn't realize I was watching everything, recording their threats, their fake badges, their unlawful touching of my mother. They had no idea they'd picked the worst possible house to target. Last chance. Reynolds grabbed Mom's elbow roughly. Come with us now to pay the fines, or we'll be forced to place a construction lien on your property today. Mom winced in pain as his fingers dug into her arm. That's when I knew this wasn't just a scam anymore. This was assault. And nobody, absolutely nobody, puts their hands on my mother. Reynolds tightened his grip on Mom's arm. We're done talking. You're coming with us now. Let go of me. Mom tried pulling away, dropping her gardening shears. They clattered against the stone path. Daniels grabbed her other arm. Stop resisting HOA officials. That's another violation. They started dragging her toward their SUV. Mom dug her heels into the soil, struggling against their grip. Help. Somebody help, she called out, her voice carrying across our quiet street. Mrs. Patel stepped onto her porch across the way, phone already in hand, witnessing everything. Shut up. Reynolds hissed, covering Mom's mouth with his hand. You're causing a scene over nothing. Mom bit down hard on his fingers. Reynolds yelped, releasing her momentarily. Michael, she screamed my name, knowing I was working from home. Daniel slapped her. The sound cracked through the air like a gunshot. Mom's head snapped back, her gardening hat falling to the ground. That slap echoed through every fiber of my being. 20 years of law enforcement training nearly vanished as rage took over. But I forced myself to think clearly. These weren't just scammers. They were dangerous, willing to use physical violence. I needed to handle this by the book. These men wouldn't just face charges for fraud, now they'd face assault, attempted kidnapping, impersonating officials. Mom stumbled but remained standing. A fighter just like she'd always been. A thin line of blood appeared at the corner of her mouth. Get her in the car, Reynolds ordered, looking nervously at Mrs. Patel, who was now clearly recording the incident. They lifted Mom off her feet, carrying her struggling body toward their vehicle. Her screams tore through me as I raced down the stairs, badge in one hand, phone still recording in the other. I took the stairs 3 at a time, heart pounding against my ribs. Already dialed dispatch on my phone. This is Chief Barnes. Code 3 at 1478 Maple Street. 2 suspects, assaulting civilian, attempting abduction. Suspects impersonating officials. Requesting immediate backup. The dispatcher's voice crackled. All units responding. ETA 4 minutes. 4 minutes. Mom didn't have 4 minutes. I grabbed my service weapon from the safe by the front door. Checked it. Holstered it. Not my first choice, but these men had already shown willingness to harm. Through the front window, I saw them struggling to force Mom into their SUV. She fought like a wildcat, kicking, scratching, refusing to go quietly. Reynolds slammed her against the vehicle door. Stop fighting or things will get much worse. I burst through the front door, letting it bang against the wall. The sound startled them both, their heads whipping around to find its source. Police. Freeze. Let her go now. My voice carried the full authority of my position. Confusion flashed across their faces. I wasn't in uniform. Just a man in a dress shirt and slacks charging toward them. Mind your business, man. Daniels called out. HOA business here. I closed the distance in seconds, badge extended. Chief Michael Barnes, Riverside Police Department. Release her immediately and get on the ground. The color drained from Reynolds' face as realization dawned. They'd targeted a police chief's mother. His grip loosened. Mom broke free, stumbling toward me, blood on her lip, dirt on her clothes, but fire in her eyes. On the ground. Hands where I can see them. Now. I positioned myself between them and Mom, weapon still holstered but hand ready. Reynolds reached inside his jacket. Don't. I warned, hand moving to my holstered weapon. Whatever you're reaching for, it's not worth what happens next. Sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder by the second. Backup was coming. There's been a misunderstanding, Reynolds stammered, hands trembling slightly. We're just doing our job. Your job. I kept my voice deadly calm. Impersonating officials? Assaulting an elderly woman? Attempted kidnapping? I stepped closer, badge still extended. I'm Chief Michael Barnes. This is my mother. This is my house. The blood drained from Daniel's face. Chief? You're the new police chief. The very same. I nodded toward my mother. And you put your hands on her. Reynolds swallowed hard. Sir, we work for Oak Ridge Community Association. We were just. There is no Oak Ridge Community Association. I cut him off. This neighborhood has no HOA. Never has. Daniels began backing toward their SUV. We should go. Clearly there's been a misunderstanding. The only place you're going is to my station. I pointed to the ground. On your knees. Hands behind your head. Now. Reynolds made a desperate calculation, eyes darting between me, the approaching sirens, and the SUV. Don't, I warned. You're already facing serious charges. Don't add resisting arrest. 2 patrol cars screeched to a halt in front of our house. 4 officers jumped out, weapons drawn. Chief. Officer Rodriguez called out. You okay? Secure these suspects, I ordered. Charges are assault, attempted kidnapping, impersonating officials, criminal threatening, and fraud. As officers cuffed them, Reynolds broke. It wasn't my idea. We were just supposed to scare her. Get some cash for the violations, and leave. Daniels glared at him. Shut up, man. Mom stood beside me, wiping blood from her lip. They've done this before, she said quietly. I can tell. Too practiced. I nodded, putting my arm around her shoulders. They picked the wrong house this time. The look on their faces as they realized they'd assaulted the police chief's mother would stay with me forever. Pure, unadulterated fear. As it should be. 4 patrol cars formed a perimeter around our property, lights flashing. Neighbors emerged from their homes, watching wide-eyed as Reynolds and Daniels were placed in separate vehicles. Sergeant Wilson approached, notebook in hand. Got the basics from dispatch, Chief. Want to fill in the details? I handed him my phone. Everything's recorded. From the moment they arrived to when they put hands on my mother. Officer Chin was already photographing Mom's injuries. The bruise forming on her arm where Reynolds had grabbed her, the cut on her lip from Daniel's slap. Ma'am, would you be comfortable giving a statement? Chin asked gently. Mom nodded, spine straight as steel. Absolutely. These men need to be stopped. Mrs. Patel hurried over from across the street. I have video too, she said, holding up her phone. I started recording when I heard shouting. Saw everything. More neighbors approached, offering statements. The Johnsons had seen the SUV circling the neighborhood yesterday. Mr. Ramirez mentioned similar officials had approached his sister in the next county. We'll need statements from everyone, I told Wilson. This might be connected to the HOA scam ring we've been tracking. Paramedics arrived to examine Mom, despite her protest that she was fine. Protocol, Mrs. Barnes, I reminded her. Even the chief follows protocol. Detective Sharma pulled me aside as they loaded Reynolds and Daniels into separate cars. We found something in their vehicle, Chief. Multiple badges, letterhead from various fake HOAs, credit card readers, and a list. She showed me her tablet. Addresses marked by date. Your mother's is today's target. My blood ran cold seeing the systematic way they'd planned their crimes. Get digital forensics on their phones immediately. I want search warrants for any addresses connected to them. Already in progress, Sharma assured me. Judge Martinez is expediting everything. I watched as the patrol cars pulled away, sirens silent but lights flashing. Reynolds stared at me through the window, hatred burning in his eyes. I stared back, unflinching. No one touches my family. No one threatens the people under my protection. Today these criminals learned that lesson the hard way. The paramedics insisted on taking Mom to the hospital, despite her protests. It's just a split lip, she argued, sitting on our front porch, ice pack pressed against her mouth. And potential contusions to your arms, possible concussion from when they pushed you against the vehicle, the paramedic countered. Better safe than sorry, Mrs. Barnes. I knelt beside her. Please, Mom. For me. She sighed, relenting. Fine. But I'm coming straight home afterward. Those roses need pruning. The garden. Her sanctuary. Violated by strangers with malicious intent. I squeezed her hand. The roses can wait one day. At the hospital, Dr. Patel confirmed what we suspected, bruising, minor lacerations, but thankfully no concussion or serious injuries. Still, the physical wounds weren't what concerned me most. I'm prescribing something for anxiety, Dr. Patel said quietly to me while Mom dressed. She may not think she needs it now, but trauma can surface unexpectedly. Mom overheard. No pills. I'm not some fragile flower. Dr. Patel smiled. Clearly not. But even the strongest people need support sometimes. We compromised on Mom attending at least one trauma counseling session. Back home, neighbors had rallied. Mrs. Johnson had cleaned up the scattered gardening tools. Mr. Patel brought dinner. The teenage boys next door offered to install security cameras. That evening, Mom sat in her favorite chair watching the local news cover the arrest. The reporter mentioned an ongoing investigation into a crime ring targeting elderly homeowners. I'm not elderly, Mom muttered, the same fire in her eyes that had helped her fight off those men. I smiled. No, you're not. Later, I found her in the garden at sunset, kneeling beside her roses. I worried she'd be afraid to be outside alone now, but Mom had never been predictable. They won't take this from me, she said without looking up. My garden. My peace. My home. I knelt beside her, felt the soil between my fingers. No, they won't. She turned to me, eyes clear and determined. Tomorrow I want you to teach me more self-defense. And I want a better security system. I nodded. First thing tomorrow? As the sun set over our neighborhood, I realized something important. They hadn't just picked the wrong house because I was the police chief. They'd picked the wrong house because my mother, like her roses, had thorns. The interrogation rooms at the station held Reynolds and Daniels separately. I watched through one-way glass as Detective Sharma worked on Reynolds, the weaker link. We know about the other neighborhoods, she said, sliding photos across the table. Elderly victims, fake HOA threats, cash payments. Textbook scam. Reynolds fidgeted. I want a lawyer. Already called. She's stuck in traffic. Sharma smiled coolly. Meanwhile, your partner's talking. Seems he doesn't appreciate you slapping the police chief's mother. A lie, but Reynolds didn't know that. His eyes widened. I entered the observation room as Officer Chin brought in a laptop. Chief, we've identified the SUV. Registered to a shell company, Oak Ridge Property Management. Same name they used in their fake HOA documents. Cross-reference with other reported HOA scams in surrounding counties. Chin nodded. Already on it. 5 identical reports in the last month. All targeting new residents over 60. Search warrants. Just came through for a storage unit in Reynolds' name. Teams heading there now. Detective Sharma exited the interrogation room, looking satisfied. He's cracking. The lawyer will complicate things, but we've got enough to hold them. My phone buzzed, text from Mom, don't work too late. I'm fine. Mrs. Patel is here. The storage unit yielded a goldmine. Fake badges, official-looking documents for numerous fictional homeowners associations, credit card readers, even police-style uniforms. Lists of targets organized by neighborhood, with notes on each residence. Next to our address, new residence. Older woman lives with son. Son works days. Garden priority. They've been watching us. Studying patterns. Waiting for the right moment. Digital forensics pulled text messages between Reynolds and someone named Marcus. Hit the garden lady tomorrow. Son leaves by 8. Easy mark. Marcus was still out there. The orchestrator. By midnight, we'd connected Reynolds and Daniels to 14 similar incidents across 3 counties. Over $30,000 stolen from victims who believed they were paying legitimate HOA fines. At 1 a.m., Detective Sharma knocked on my office door. Chief, we found something else. Credit card skimmers. They weren't just collecting fake fines, they were stealing financial information. This was bigger than harassment and assault. This was organized crime targeting vulnerable residents. I stared at the evidence wall we'd created, photos of victims connected by red string to locations, dates, amounts stolen. My mother's face now among them, her split lip visible in the hospital photo. Find Marcus, I told Sharma. Whatever it takes. She nodded. We will. As I drove home in the pre-dawn hours, I realized something disturbing. Our address had been on their list for weeks. They'd been watching, waiting. How many other homes were on their future targets list? How many other vulnerable people had no idea they were being stalked by predators in fake uniforms? This wasn't just about justice for Mom anymore. This was about protecting our entire community from an organized threat hiding behind fake authority. 3 days of intense investigation revealed a criminal enterprise far more extensive than we initially thought. The storage unit records led us to a rented office space in an industrial park 20 miles away. The sign on the door read, Oak Ridge Community Management. Inside we found 6 workstations, each with lists of targets, fake HOA documentation, and scripts for confronting homeowners. This wasn't just 2 men running a scam, this was an operation. They've hit over 70 homes in the last year, Sergeant Wilson reported during our briefing. Conservative estimate puts their take at over $200,000. Detective Sharma pulled up surveillance footage from the office. We've identified 4 more suspects beyond Reynolds and Daniels. And we've got a lead on Marcus Whitfield, former real estate agent who lost his license 3 years ago for fraud. The scam was sophisticated but followed a pattern. Target new homeowners, especially older residents who might be intimidated by official-looking documents. Create fictional violations with escalating fines. Sometimes they'd settle for cash payments on the spot. Other times they'd gain access to homes under the guise of inspections, and steal valuables or plant credit card skimmers on computers. As news of the arrests spread, more victims came forward. Mrs. Henderson, an 82-year-old widow, had paid over $3,000 in fake fines. The Rodriguez family had their identities stolen after allowing HOA inspectors into their home. The press caught wind of the story. HOA scammers target police chief's mother, made headlines across the state. I agreed to a brief interview, using the platform to warn other communities. These individuals prey on people's respect for authority, I told the reporter. They count on victims being too embarrassed to report being scammed. If someone approaches you claiming to represent an HOA, verify their credentials with your city government. The morning after the interview aired, we received a tip. A nervous young man walked into the station asking to speak with me. I worked for them, he admitted, hands shaking. Not the scam part, I was just building their website. But I heard things, saw things. Marcus has a lake house where they keep records of everything. Every victim, every dollar. By sunset, tactical teams surrounded Marcus Whitfield's lake house. He surrendered without incident, looking almost relieved when we led him away in handcuffs. Inside we found what the informant promised, detailed records of every scam, every victim going back 3 years. Maps with red pins marking targets. Financial statements showing money flowing through offshore accounts. Most disturbing were the psychological profiles. They'd categorized victims by vulnerability, elderly, immigrant, new homeowner, non-English speaker. They'd studied who would be most likely to pay without question, who would be too afraid to report the crime. As I flipped through the files, I found one labeled Mistakes. Inside was a photo of my house. Below it, handwritten, Police Chief's mother. Abort operation. They'd known who I was. But Reynolds and Daniels had ignored the warning, too greedy to pass up what they thought was an easy target. That night, I called every police chief in the state, sharing everything we'd uncovered. Similar operations might be running elsewhere, targeting different communities with the same methodical cruelty. This wasn't just about justice for Mom anymore. This was about dismantling a predatory system designed to exploit people's trust and fear. And we were just getting started. The county prosecutor's office buzzed with activity as Assistant DA Morgan reviewed our evidence. 6 suspects in custody. 73 confirmed victims across 3 counties. Charges ranging from fraud to assault, criminal impersonation to identity theft. This is rock solid, Chief, Morgan said, closing a file. The documentation they kept will bury them. Reynolds and Daniels are looking at 10 to 15 years minimum. I nodded, relieved but not satisfied. What about Marcus Whitfield? The ringleader? Morgan smiled grimly. We're adding racketeering charges. His operation crossed county lines, making it a much more serious offense. He'll never see the outside of a prison again. Mom arrived for her formal statement, dressed immaculately in her blue suit, the one she wore to Dad's funeral. Her bruises had faded to yellowish smudges, but her determination hadn't wavered. Mrs. Barnes, Morgan greeted her warmly. Your testimony is crucial. These recordings you and your son made will be central to our case. Mom straightened her spine. I want to face them in court. I want them to see me. You'll have that opportunity, Morgan assured her. The preliminary hearing was set for the following week. Media interest had exploded after our press conference revealing the full scope of the scam. Victims from neighboring counties arrived at our station daily, many bringing evidence, fake invoices, business cards, photos of the suspects. Reynolds and Daniels turned on each other almost immediately, each hoping for leniency. Their attorneys floated plea deals, which Morgan firmly rejected. We're taking this to trial, she told me over coffee. Too many victims deserve their day in court. The defense attorneys tried every angle. Their clients were just following orders. They never intended to physically harm anyone. They were victims themselves of a manipulative boss. Judge Harriman saw through it all. Bail denied for all defendants, she ruled. The systematic nature of these crimes and the targeting of vulnerable victims makes each defendant a continuing threat to the community. I visited the detention center where they were being held. Not to interrogate, just to observe. Reynolds had lost his arrogant swagger. Daniels looked haunted. Marcus Whitfield, however, maintained his cool businessman demeanor. You know what your mistake was? I asked him through the visitation glass. He raised an eyebrow, curious despite himself. Not the fake HOA. Not the targeting of seniors. Your mistake was thinking that people wouldn't stand up for each other. That communities wouldn't fight back. For the first time, I saw uncertainty flicker across his face. Back at the station, victim statements continued pouring in. We created a dedicated task force just to process them all. Officer Chin developed a database tracking every incident, creating timelines, patterns, connections. We've got reports from 2 more counties, she informed me. Same MO, different suspects. This might be bigger than just Marcus's operation. The investigation expanded, tentacles reaching into neighboring states. What had started with my mother's assault was unveiling a network of criminal enterprises targeting homeowners across the region. The grand jury returned indictments on all charges. Trial dates were set. And through it all, Mom remained resolute, determined to see justice done, not just for herself but for everyone who'd been victimized. They picked the wrong garden to trample, she told me one evening, tending her roses which had begun to bloom again. And the wrong gardener to threaten. The courtroom fell silent as the jury foreman stood. 6 weeks of testimony, evidence, and legal arguments had led to this moment. Mom sat beside me in the front row, her hand gripping mine tightly. On the count of assault in the first degree, how do you find? Guilty. On the count of attempted kidnapping? Guilty. The verdicts continued, one after another. Guilty on all counts for Reynolds and Daniels. The same for Marcus Whitfield and his 3 other associates. Judge Harriman looked down from her bench, her expression severe. The court will reconvene tomorrow for sentencing. Outside, reporters thrust microphones toward us. Chief Barnes, how do you feel about the verdict? I stepped aside, gently guiding Mom forward. This is the real hero of this case. My mother, Elaine Barnes. Mom blinked at the cameras, then spoke clearly. I want every senior citizen, every homeowner to hear this. You have the right to question anyone who comes to your door. You have the right to verify credentials. And you have the right to say no. The sentencing hearing the next day delivered the justice we'd fought for. Reynolds and Daniels each received 15 years. Marcus Whitfield received 25 years with no possibility of parole for at least 18. The judge ordered full restitution to all victims, though we knew many would never recover the full extent of their losses, especially the sense of security these criminals had stolen. This case represents a profound breach of trust, Judge Harriman declared. The defendants preyed upon vulnerable citizens, exploiting their respect for authority and their fear of losing their homes. Such calculated cruelty deserves the fullest punishment the law allows. One by one, victims delivered impact statements. Mrs. Henderson described how she'd skipped meals to pay the fake fines. Mr. Rodriguez explained how his children now feared answering the door. Each story reinforced the human cost of these crimes. When Mom's turn came, she approached the podium slowly but confidently. "I consider myself fortunate," she began. "Not because I'm the police chief's mother, though that certainly helped catch these criminals. I'm fortunate because I had the courage to question authority when it felt wrong. Many victims didn't have that courage or didn't know they could use it." She turned to face the defendants. "You didn't just take money. You took people's peace of mind, their trust, their sense of safety in their own homes." She paused. "But you failed to take their dignity. And you will never take mine." As we left the courthouse, a crowd had gathered, neighbors, victims, community members. They weren't there for the media spectacle. They were there in solidarity. Mrs. Patel rushed forward, hugging Mom tightly. "You spoke for all of us in there." The Rodriguez children presented her with hand-drawn cards. "Thank you for being brave," one read. This case had transformed my mother from a victim into an advocate. Already, she was working with our community outreach program, developing seminars on recognizing scams and reporting suspicious activity. That evening we sat in her garden, watching the sunset paint the sky in brilliant oranges and pinks. Her roses bloomed vibrantly around us. "You know," she said quietly, "your father would be proud of how this turned out." I squeezed her hand. "He'd be proud of you." She smiled, the first unreserved smile I'd seen since the attack. "I think I'll plant some new flowers tomorrow. Something bold. Something that isn't afraid to take up space." Justice hadn't just been delivered in a courtroom. It had been planted, like a seed, in our community. And like Mom's garden, it would continue to grow. The HOA scam case transformed our neighborhood. What began as tragedy evolved into something powerful, a community finding its collective voice. Within weeks of the sentencing, Mom organized the first Neighborhood Watch and Learn meeting in our backyard. Nearly 60 people attended, spilling from our patio onto the lawn. Officer Chin gave a presentation on recognizing official credentials. Detective Sharma demonstrated how to verify any official who comes to your door. "Always call the organization they claim to represent," Mom emphasized, standing beside a table loaded with informational pamphlets. "Real officials will wait while you verify." The initiative spread rapidly. Neighboring communities requested similar programs. Local businesses donated funds for yard signs reading, "This home verifies all officials." Our county commissioner allocated resources for a dedicated anti-scam hotline. Most remarkably, residents began connecting in ways they hadn't before. Mr. Ramirez, a retired security specialist, helped install doorbell cameras for elderly neighbors. The teenage boys from next door created a smartphone app that seniors could use to quickly report suspicious visitors. Mrs. Patel, a former paralegal, organized free document review sessions to help residents identify fraudulent paperwork. One evening, I arrived home to find Mom hosting a garden club meeting that had evolved into a self-defense class. Mrs. Henderson, at 82, practiced wrist releases while balancing beside Mom's rose bushes. "Your mother is a force of nature," Detective Sharma commented during our weekly briefing. "Scam reports are down 64% in your neighborhood since the program started." The case garnered national attention. A producer from a major news network contacted us about featuring Mom's story in a documentary about community resilience. Mom initially hesitated. "I'm not interested in being a celebrity," she told me. "But if it helps other communities protect themselves." The resulting segment, "When Criminals Target the Wrong Garden," aired nationally. Mom's straightforward advice resonated with viewers: trust your instincts. If something feels wrong, it probably is. Local government responded too. The City Council passed the Barnes Ordinance, requiring all legitimate municipal workers and service providers to carry standardized, scannable ID badges. They created an online verification system where residents could confirm any official's identity using a simple code. 6 months after the attack, we hosted a community garden party. What began as Mom's private sanctuary had expanded across adjoining yards, with neighbors' enthusiastic permission, into a connected series of garden spaces. Mrs. Patel grew vegetables beside Mom's roses. The Rodriguez family added a butterfly garden. Mr. Henderson contributed a peaceful meditation corner. From separate houses to one community, Mom observed, watching children play tag through carefully maintained pathways between flower beds. That evening, as neighbors shared food and stories, Detective Sharma pulled me aside. "We've identified similar scam operations in 5 more states. The FBI is involved now. What started with your mother has exposed a national criminal network." I watched Mom laugh with Mrs. Henderson, both women stronger now, both refusing to be defined by what had happened. "They thought they were targeting vulnerable individuals," I said. "Instead, they awakened a community." As twilight fell, neighbors lingered, reluctant to end the gathering. Someone brought out string lights. Another started playing guitar. The garden that had been the scene of violence now hosted healing and connection. Mom found me watching from the porch. "Not bad for an elderly woman, She winked. "Not bad at all," I agreed, hugging her shoulders. "Not bad at all." So that's what happened when fake HOA representatives tried dragging my mother off our property. They never expected to find themselves facing a police chief, or more importantly, a community that refused to let criminals win. If you're watching this from Riverside, you might recognize some of those landmarks. For everyone else, I hope this story serves as both a warning and inspiration. Criminals like these operate everywhere, counting on isolation and fear to succeed. The men who targeted my mother are serving their sentences now. Marcus Whitfield occasionally files appeals, all denied so far. Reynolds and Daniels testified against other members of the network, though it didn't reduce their own sentences much. Mom? She's doing amazing. Her garden expanded again last month. She teaches safety seminars twice weekly at the community center. The local paper named her Citizen of the Year. As for me, I learned something powerful through all this. A badge and gun aren't what make a community safe. What truly protects us is connection. Neighbors who notice when something's wrong, who check on each other, who stand together against those who would harm us. If you've experienced something similar, please share your story in the comments. Let's break the silence these criminals depend on. Tell me where you're watching from. Scammers operate differently in different regions, and sharing information helps everyone stay safer. Hit subscribe if you want more stories from the front lines of community policing. Next week, I'll share how we used neighborhood connections to break up a package theft ring targeting new developments. Remember, official representatives will always have verifiable credentials. They'll never demand immediate payment. They'll never threaten you. And they'll never, ever drag you from your property. Stay safe out there. Look out for each other. And if something doesn't feel right, trust that instinct. This is Chief Michael Barnes signing off from Riverside, where we learned the hard way that targeting the wrong house can lead criminals straight to justice.